Hey guys, I haven't made a video in a while. Okay, so I don't know who's watching these videos. You might be new here. Not like new to this channel, but new to my life. And if you are, you're going to need some context for this video. The more discerning of you may have noticed that I am in drag. This is because I used to be a drag queen. Sort of. The name of my channel actually comes from my drag name, Hellvetika. And I used it for so long that people just started knowing me by that, and it's all my socials, so I've just kind of kept it, whether I'm doing drag or not. Now, I've always had a very complicated relationship with drag, and I want to use this video as a way to answer some questions and clear up some confusion about that. And I hate to be one of those YouTubers who's like, a lot of you have been asking, but really, I swear to God, people do ask me about this. The most common question being, why did you quit drag? And I kind of hate it when people ask me this, just because it's not an easy answer. I mean, it's like so complicated. Was I even a drag queen to begin with? If you do drag in your bedroom and no one's around, does it slay? Let's talk about the capacity in which I have done drag. I have never done drag full-time, or even part-time. Like, not even close. I hear so many wild assumptions about what my life was like when I used to do drag all the time. It's just so strange to me. Throughout my entire drag career, I have always worked the same full-time office job. Like, I do user interface and user experience design for apps and websites. It's like a 9 to 5. Not very queer, I know. So drag for me was always more of a hobby, like a way for me to express parts of me that I couldn't express in other mediums. Like, it was a way for me to experiment with like beauty and glamour and all my interest in like 80s music and 80s music video aesthetic and 80s heavy metal without having to try to shoehorn that into my illustration work, because it never really fit. Basically, drag is where I allow myself to be 100% tacky, which is extremely freeing. I recommend you try it. But drag for me was really just a visual medium. That's all I wanted out of it. Over the years, I've only performed a handful of times in like nightclubs. Is nightclub like an old lady thing to say? It's just clubs, right? Yeah, I don't really like nightlife. Drag for me for the most part was just painting my face at home, putting on a wig, you know, sorting through jewelry on eBay, basically putting together a look and taking photos of it. Technically, this makes me a bedroom queen, which a lot of people don't like. But yeah, even at the peak of my interest in drag, I did it maximum once a week. And I think where the confusion comes in, and this is gonna sound like a humble brag, is how well known I was in the drag community for the amount of drag that I did. So I started drag probably in 2012, Halloween at my art school college, but I didn't have any money to invest in it, and I only did it, you know, once every few months. You know, I was still a student, I didn't really have any spare money for that kind of thing, and drag is probably much more expensive than you think. After college, I moved to New York City, where I kind of got into the local drag scene a little bit. I would say it's about in 2015 when I really started investing a little bit into my drag. Like, once I worked my job for a few years, I saved up a little bit of money, and I was like, you know, I really enjoy doing this. This can be like my place for me to spend some extra cash. So I got some lighting equipment, I got a nice vanity setup, and I started doing full looks in my apartment, and I started using my photography and graphic design background to take photos of them. It was about in January 2016 where I started posting these photos on Instagram, and shit just blew up really quickly. See, I was a bearded drag queen, still am, and around that time, there weren't really a lot of queens doing bearded drag. Like, of course, there was Matthew Anderson, and people knew of Grace Towers in San Francisco, but it was nothing like it is today. The drag scene was still kind of like slowly amping up to what it is now, and people weren't really that aware of more historical drag references like the Coquettes or Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. Basically, the field was completely open, and I was considered a novelty. I would consider it a very right place at the right time scenario. But another thing that made it really easy for me to get noticed was that back in 2016, most drag queens weren't doing professional quality photography of their looks. So my stuff really stood out on an Instagram feed compared to everyone else's mirror selfies. By the end of 2017, I had racked up about 45,000 Instagram followers, which was worth a lot more then than it is now. And I just kind of became a notable figure in the drag scene really quickly. So because of this, people thought I did drag for a living. They assumed I was a working queen who had all these skills that I didn't have. And I was constantly on rumored drag race contestant lists, even though I could barely walk in heels. I always found it kind of funny, but also terrifying. So the question is, why did I quit? I would question if I even did quit. You know, I never did drag very frequently. And I think over the years, the time between doing looks just got bigger and bigger. Like, the first thing is drag is not profitable for me and has never been profitable for me. I really never monetized it in any way besides selling some pins and t-shirts. So it actually cost me a ton of money, which was not super motivating. So if I didn't feel like doing drag, I just didn't do it. It was entirely for my own enjoyment. And if I didn't want to do it, there was no obligation for me to do it. You know, nobody hired me. But more so than this, I feel like over time, I kind of lost a little bit of interest in drag. I think I got a little bit overwhelmed by how quickly the drag scene was evolving and growing, and how much new, amazing drag I was seeing. As more and more, like, really amazing queens would pop up, I think I just started feeling a little less confident in myself, and I felt like maybe it was getting harder and harder for me to kind of bring something new to the table. Because for me, it's like, if I'm not adding something to the conversation, why even do it? Like, there was just so much good stuff out there, I felt like I couldn't contribute in the way that I was contributing in, like, 2016. I have to say, good drag in 2015 is very different from good drag in 2021. I also kind of started to feel self-conscious about the amount of resources I felt other queens had. I just didn't have a lot of free time or money, and trying to learn the skills to put yourself on the level of some of these other people just became a little bit daunting. And I was so, like, enamored with the beauty of some of these new queens. It was just like they kept getting younger and more flawless. And, like, I'm aware I don't have a naturally pretty face for drag. So I just got really self-critical of my own looks, to the point where, like, the act of painting my face felt like an exercise in, like, self-hate. I would fixate on every flaw, like every texture, every mistake. And I think having that following of people who kind of expected something from you held me back in a way. Like, I thought that they expected better. I was like, I should be better than this. And all the pressure I put on myself made it stop being fun. And since I was just doing it for fun, I don't know, it's like I lost my way somewhere. So looking back, I think I let my own perfectionism and my insecurities kind of get in the way of doing something that I really loved. Something that was supposed to just be for me. Like, I really feel like all the expectations from my followers really weighed on me. Like, I would get so many questions about where I was performing, or when I was going to audition for Drag Race, or if I was going to be on it. And I know that sounds like a very first world problem, and I feel bad because there are so many drag queens who really want those opportunities. But I have had crippling anxiety my entire life. Check out my video on coping with anxiety. So performing is pretty much out of the question for me. I actually found the idea that people thought I could host and entertain a crowd to be terrifying. Like, the skills that people infer you have just because you know how to look sort of pretty, it's wild to me. Like, they thought I could dance and do the splits. I can't even sit cross-legged. I'm pretty sure I have that ankylosing spondylitis. I can't pronounce it, but I think I have it. Like, when I'm fully in drag, it's hard for me to even stand up straight. I'm constantly knocking things over. I have no spatial awareness. The few times that I've been to a club in full drag, I've spent the entire time trying not to throw up. So maybe I felt like an imposter in a way, even though I never claimed I could do any of these things. It's just People assumed I could do stuff that I couldn't do, and I had to consistently explain to people that no, I'm actually talentless. And because I was so known, I started getting really harsh criticism of my drag online. Like, people would talk about me as if I was a celebrity who was never gonna read their comments. And people having negative opinions about my drag is fine with me, but for some reason, when people think you're in the public eye, they have no problem also saying stuff about you as a person. So I would have people critique personal details of my life. People would make up stories about like how much money I had, or they'd say they met me at a bar and I was rude. They'd criticize totally unrelated aspects of my life. I distinctly remember this one person who used the fact that I used to do a lot of illustration work but don't anymore as like a negative. Basically, they said that because I don't do the illustration work that I used to do, it reflects how lazy and terrible I am, and that reflects in my drag. Like, who are you? And when people found out I mostly did drag at home, they would turn on me like I was some sort of poser trying to like pull the wool over their eyes. Like I was pathetic for not doing more than that. They'd make up claims that of course I wanted to do more, but wasn't able to because I was just too talentless. A lot of queens would resent me because I got popular and they felt I didn't deserve it. Which, I didn't, I don't think. But it's not like I really controlled it. Jesus Christ, all I did was post my hobby online. I cannot be held responsible for you not meeting your own goals. And the drag community that I originally found to be full of opportunities for expression and companionship turned into this like toxic cesspool of infighting. It felt like they all hated each other. It wasn't really something I wanted to be around. Overall, there was just a lot of like intrusive judgment that I didn't expect, wasn't ready for, and wasn't equipped to handle. And it definitely wasn't worth it, because drag was costing me money to do. A hobby I did got blown up to something bigger than I could control, and came with a lot of negatives I didn't want, so I leaned away from it. I think there's a conversation here to be had about what a drag queen is and what is expected of a drag queen. I think there's a pervasive judgment in the community about what drag queens should do. Like, a fully rounded drag queen is this. I hear it all the time, like, she looks great, but she can't perform. Oh, she's a great performer, but she looks like shit. I think the fact that everyone's main source of drag for over a decade now has been a TV show where they're judged on a variety of different unrelated skills is kind of to blame for this. And it's ironic, because the creator of that show really only has one talent, and that's being a personality. You know, RuPaul can't perform, she can't sing, she can't dance, she can't sew, she can't style wigs. I don't even think she can do her own makeup. And you know what? That's fine. The fracking and the trans women exclusion thing is an issue, but the fact that Ru really only has one talent that she pays other people to uplift is not really a problem for me. Personally, I have pretty much no interest in lip sync performances. I've never even tried to do choreography. I don't want to be a comedic actor, and I don't feel the need to be able to walk a runway like Naomi Campbell. And if that makes me not a drag queen or like my drag illegitimate, that's fine with me. I really don't mind. Basically, I think just because somebody wants to do a few aspects of drag doesn't make their drag illegitimate for not doing all of the aspects of drag. So, now, none of this is to say I won't be doing drag again. And actually seeing so many people do digital drag this year has kind of revitalized my interest in it. And I'm heavily considering bringing my drag to this channel a little bit more. I mean, I certainly look a little bit more interesting, right? During quarantine, I kind of got into the Twitch drag scene. And you know what? Painting my face at home and then playing video games is really more my speed. So maybe I was a bit of a trailblazer. But yeah, to be honest, I just wanted to have a video to direct people to when they ask me why I quit drag. And it's looking as if the frame rate is fucked up in this entire video. So I'm sorry about that. Anyway, I hope I look okay. Bye guys, I haven't done drag in a while. Wah, wah.